So I didn't have a takedowns class today because I had to cover for Coach Casey and kettlebells. So we're going to do a takedown in this class, okay? And we just taught it to the kids class a couple hours ago. So kids and adults get the same takedown. We'll see who does it better. But we're going to operate off of an underhook, okay? So I've got, let's rotate this way just slightly. So I've got an underhook, and this near side one is the most common for what we're going to do, okay? There are, I would say, at least 3 different grips. They're all underhooks. I call them all an underhook. Somebody that is very specific with their terminology might have different names for this near side one, far side shoulder, or like a tight waist here. We're gonna call them all an underhook. But this near side shoulder is the most common for this. And I should be fully expecting that he's gonna have a wizard in on me, okay? So when I'm looking at my underhook on here, turn with me just slightly, you guys see how my shoulder is out pretty far, right? So my underhook is gonna be as powerful as my shoulder is deep in most cases. So if my shoulder is really low, his wizard's gonna beat me. So see how my shoulder is very much on the chest side of Philip. Like if he had the seam on the gi, if my shoulder is on the pec side of the seam, my underhook is not quite as good. And the farther I can get my underhook to go past the seam, the farther I get my shoulder to go past the seam, I'm gonna have a better underhook, okay? So if he clamps down, he's probably winning this because my shoulder is all the way on this side of the seam. And in fact, this doesn't feel good on my shoulder just standing here. But if I go like this, now my shoulder's on the back side of the seam, you see a huge difference. I can keep a strong posture very easily. His posture is broken naturally from this. If he tries to whizzer me, he still has a whizzer to the point I can't take his back, but otherwise he's in a really bad spot, okay? So if you wanna set yourself up for success on most underhook attacks, that's like thing 1 that we're gonna start with, is how deep is my underhook, okay? Again, the seam on the gi, most gis have, turn this way, most gis have this seam. It's a nice like visual to think about with it, okay? Questions on that part? Okay, so I get my arm as deep through as I can. I'm expecting the whizzer for the drill. Go ahead and do the whizzer, right? Now, for most of my attacks off of the underhook, especially when they're whizzering, I want my foot between his 2 feet. He would prefer to have his foot between my 2 feet. But I want mine between his, he wants his between mine, he wants his between mine, and this is the battle that we play, okay? But I want to get on the inside. When I have his head down so low, it's a lot easier for me to keep my leg on the inside. He's not very mobile, okay? So I'm gonna keep my leg on the inside. If I don't have his posture broken, like I only have a medium-ish underhook and not as good of a one, then I also need to worry about my head position. If our heads are about the same height, I want my head kind of on the inside. He probably also wants his head on the inside, and that's a little bit of a battle too. But if I get a deep underhook and get his head down, I don't have to worry about it so much, okay? So this one's pretty simple. We're just gonna do a simple little knee tap takedown. It puts me into a great side control position, really reasonably easy fall for my partner. There's no amplitude with it or anything, and it's pretty simple. It's not a complicated takedown. So I'm gonna be looking for my free hand to come to this knee here. Note that I need to step this leg in order to do it. The lower his head, the more off balance he's gonna be. Okay? If I drive him backwards, he'll naturally be able to stand. So I need to go only laterally or even very slightly to the front to make sure that he stays down. You'll see if I accidentally go backwards, he gets his posture, this leg retreats away from me, and I've lost a lot of it. Compare that to if I go directly sideways or even slightly forwards, his head stays down. Very hard for him to move at all. And then I just keep walking and I run right through it into a nice side control position. Right there. Okay? That was, when we were teaching the kids, I think that was one of the hardest parts, is they kept going backwards and they couldn't reach the person's leg because they were almost pushing their leg away because I'm knocking him backwards. Versus if I'm pulling him down and I make him travel only sideways, that leg's gonna be pretty stuck. So again, key details. Deep underhook, trying to get my shoulder behind the seam on his gi. That allows me to get his head low. Detail 2, My foot starts between his feet. He wants his in the middle. I want mine in the middle, okay? And then I need to bring my left leg towards that one so I can reach the knee, and then I just keep walking until I land in a nice side control position, okay? I'll borrow a card tick so Philip can see one. And we'll try going the other direction just to see if I'm ambidextrous. So again, most gis, he's got the same seam on his gi that Philip does there, okay? If my shoulder is on his chest, his whizzer is better than my under. Okay, like I already feel my shoulder is not happy right now. Versus if I can go deeper like this, whizzer strong, you can't whizzer very strong. It feels way worse for you, right? So that's a key detail. You'll also see his head gets broken down a while when I do that. Or at the very least, I have leverage to do it should I choose to do it, right? Detail 2, my foot goes between his feet. He wants his in the middle, I want mine in the middle. He wants his in the middle, I want mine in the middle, and so on and so forth it goes, okay? I'm trying to reach the knee, but I can't reach that knee well with my hand if this leg is back far. So I've got to step like in front of his leg, and that's what's going to let me get it. And then I just keep walking until we go down there. Okay, one more time. So, not a shallow underhook. His whizzer is going to be better than my underhook. Deep and trying to make his head go down with it. I get my foot in the middle. I can even off balance him slightly from there. And then I step. And we just go across. Okay? So pretty simple. Again, you know, you can control your partner's fall and make it a nice soft fall. We also really like this because you stay super connected to your partner on the ground, right? In jiu-jitsu, we don't win the match just by throwing them down. We got to stay on top. And this one, you stay super, super connected, and you're usually past their guard completely when you do it. So it's a great, great takedown for jiu-jitsu, or you see this a lot in MMA for the same reasons, right? The fight keeps happening on the ground. You want to go ground and pound them, whatever. It's a really strong takedown, okay? So deep whizzer, foot in the middle, going mostly laterally or even forwards a little bit. And just keep your hand on their knee and keep walking until they fall over. Okay, pretty simple. Questions before we go try it? All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the most common way, and I think the strongest way to do this is what we just showed, which is that real deep underhook from there. Admittedly though, in gi grappling, getting an underhook that deep is not super common. It's especially not common when you start from standing up. It's actually more common, I think, when you're in like half guard and you come up to standing from the already tangled up position, right? In no gi, it still is hard. Like if, you know, my opponent knows grappling and everything, they're not gonna just be like, oh, let Tony come get this underhook right now, right? It's hard to do. And same thing, we see that like dog fight type position that largely resembles this. But I do want to show, even though the underhook is the strongest, I almost got off track there. Even though the underhook I think is the strongest, I do think there's some reasonable ways we can use a more accessible grip to still do a version of the takedown. And the trade-off is benefit, more accessible grip, easier to get. Downside, we have less control, less power, right? They can move and wiggle out a little bit easier. So I think you'll find that this will be harder to get them down, but if you want to try it, this will be a little bit more accessible grip to get started with, okay? So I still need his posture down in order to do this, and I think the easiest way possible. So I could potentially do it with a standard grip if I can break his posture down a lot, but admittedly that can be not the easiest thing in the world with this grip where my index finger is at the collarbone. That's like the common grip. You can do that, but it's not going to be the strongest. What I would probably say is I'm going to put my thumb in the tag of his jacket, and I'm going to curl my wrist into like a gooseneck shape, so I'm contouring along the back of his neck, trap, and chest. Right? So I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be pulling down like this. Everybody see that? And I can even pull this up so I'm on his head a little bit now. Okay? And of course, he's going to be gripping me and all of these things, right? But the more he grips me, his knee is available. Turn with me. His knee is available, okay? So I can pepper in my foot sweeps and all this stuff, And then when I'm ready, his head is already down. I'm gonna lunge and reach for the knee at the same time and just try to run right by him. Okay? That's what you get. Okay? So this is gonna be a little hard to do from right in front of him, so I need to time this as we're moving. So I've got his posture broken. I'm assuming he's gonna be gripping me, and that's okay with this one, because when I have his posture broken, his grip is kind of low and it's not super strong. Okay? And I'll be going for my foot sweep, I'll be going for all this, and here I get his posture down, and then in one motion, I release whatever arm control I have, and I'm gonna step and go for it all at once. And I usually wind up in like a case of Gatami sort of a position, because I was behind his neck already. Okay? I'll borrow Philip's card if you can see. Questions before I show again? Okay, so just to reiterate, hard if they're upright. This is not something I'm even really thinking about doing when they're upright. I'm like, step one, I gotta break them down a bunch first. Okay, I'll get questions in just a second. Okay, so I get the tag of the jacket and I come down like this. And let's turn. Does everyone see how my forearm is vertical, which is gonna make it incredibly hard for him to shoot a single leg or something here. Like I'm blocking that, and that's very intentional. If I have a long arm, he could come right under and come get my leg, right? So I'm using this both to keep his posture down, and my forearm is like a block to make it a shield against him getting my lead leg, right? Okay? Now I'm going to assume he's going to be gripping me. Okay? This is a reasonable enough assumption, and typically my hand will grab somewhere like this. A grip here is not, I don't feel like I've got good control, so usually I go at the back of the triceps or something like that from here, okay? So, you know, when we're here, I'm like peppering his feet, I'm trying to off balance him, and then when I feel like he's already stepping backwards a little bit like that, you guys see how his feet were just going back? That's a perfect time to go. So my left leg steps, my left hand goes to the knee, and I keep driving right into like a case of Gatami sort of a position. Yeah, I saw a few hands go up. What questions we have? Smith?
Are you also like pushing his weight onto that leg? So
a little bit. It naturally does that. I don't need to push with my arm. I just keep the grip, and my step is what's going to make his head go over the leg I'm trying to get. So if I don't even have this hand, okay, so I get this, watch how his head, let's turn this way a little. You're going to see his head goes from centered between his 2 feet to it briefly goes over that way. Okay, you see how it briefly moved? Now, if I can make my hand reach his leg before he steps, that's where he's tipping, and he's gonna fall over from right there. I think I saw one more hand up. Was it Shamir?
Do you, as you take him down, do you squeeze the leg through to prevent him from like getting a half arm?
You keep it, you have to use your discretion based on what's going on. But it's a little bit of a swat, but I'm mostly thinking about blocking his leg. It's mostly a block. And I'm moving my own body by it. Okay. It's usually more energy efficient in 9 out of 10 cases to focus on moving my own body instead of focusing on moving your opponent's body most of the time. Right? Does everyone understand the question? Like, I'm not trying to smack his leg across the room. I'm just blocking it so I can run past it, pretty much. Okay.
So is this the equivalent of the one where you block his leg with your own leg?
There's also a Sotogari, which is, I think, what you're asking. I can hear.
Not a Sotogari. It's more just a Nogi version. You kind of put the leg, put their weight on one leg, and then bring your leg around here, and then like put them over like that.
I'm not sure I know what you want to do it on Philip.
So this one.
Oh, not quite the same. I think similar principles in place, but it's not quite identical. Okay. But it's, yeah, I see some similarities there for sure. Other questions? All right, so let's go try this one, all right? On 3. 1, 2, 3.